What's up, guys? Brute Force Brigade here with Idle Heroes Tips and Tricks. This is actually my third installment of the Shadow Faction list of best and worst heroes. I actually just kind of want to go over the two new heroes a little bit and do a few honorable mentions if we have time. So let's go ahead and dive right on into this. I'm actually going to look at Corpsdemon first. With both of the new heroes, they kind of just focused on crowd control, which is something the Shadow Faction was actually missing. This kind of did something that was sort of a problem, still is really a problem, but hopefully it's the start of a new trend where they're going to kind of even out the rest of the factions. Fortress is really the only one that has a little bit of everything, as far as they have healers and they have really good crowd control, fantastic damage dealers, so they have a little bit of everything, whereas the Undead faction hasn't really, or Shadow faction hasn't really offered much in the way of crowd control, and so hopefully this will be a nice little trend that we have going on here. So let's go ahead and dive into these heroes. You can kind of look at their stats. They're pretty on par with other warriors and rangers, so I'm not too worried about the stats. Mostly it's their abilities that make them fantastic heroes, so let's go ahead and look at those. Deals 174% of attack damage against the frontline enemies and has a 42% chance to freeze them for 2 rounds. So that's actually fantastic. If I'm not mistaken, I think Corpsdemon now has the highest crowd control percentage in the game at the moment. 42% is amazing. I know that Dark Arthendal's second ability has a 50% chance to petrify, but I think it might just be one enemy, maybe it's 2. I'll have to go check that out. But this is great. It does target the front line, so it's mostly going to affect the tank or the DPS unit for players who are still running their teams that way. But that's good because you can go ahead and get that tank and the DPS unit out of the way. And so, to me, Corpsdemon is kind of the answer to the Fortress hero Ice Blink. He's sort of, his abilities are sort of similar in that he does a lot of freezing, and Ice Blink's kind of been the go-to for crowd control freezing, especially since people are mostly building Fortress and Forest teams right now. So hopefully this will even that out and kind of get us out of this Fortress, the lighter side of faction meta we're in right now, primarily Fortress and Forest. So the second part of the ability is healing self for 500% of attack as HP cannot be dodged. So once again with that cannot be dodged there, and that's great. This kind of is a better version of like Dominator and Belrog and all of those warriors who heal themselves, except that he's actually a feasible character, very useful, versus those characters which they're kind of garbage characters. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to his second ability here. When taking damage by a non-warrior target, has a 20% chance to freeze the target for 2 rounds. So that's fantastic. We see a lot of, when targeting warriors, when targeting mages, when targeting, X, Y, or Z abilities, I don't think I've ever seen a when targeting, or when taking damage by a non, etc., whichever. So that's kind of a cool new thing. Maybe that'll transition into other characters. So basically, anytime a priest or an assassin or any of the major DPS units hits him, they have a chance to be frozen. So that's just adding more chance to freeze. Usually people run 1 tank or less, depending. And there are quite a few ranger tanks. But, some people are still running warriors as their tank, so that's fantastic, in that if their tank is a warrior, is a non-warrior, like a ranger, then he has an extra chance to freeze them as well. You could potentially freeze you would never get that off enough to freeze everyone on the team, but you have the potential to freeze everyone on the enemy's team when they're hitting you if they're not running any warrior class. I haven't put a single point into the guild tech tree for warriors, just because since I've started this account, I haven't had any warriors worth running. I just now pull enough Brea and Asmodel and Sleepless Pieces to actually get some good warriors going, so I haven't invested very much, but So this would be really damaging to my team because I don't have any warriors whatsoever. So the second half of this says, when taking damage by a warrior target, has a 35% chance to freeze the target for 2 rounds. So see, I mean, it covers both sides of the coin. That 35%, that's like right on par with what Ice Blink's freeze actually, percentage-wise, is. So he has a 35% chance to freeze any warriors, and that's great for people who are running Asmodel, because Asmodel just destroys people, and that gives you a chance to kind of take him off the board for 2 rounds. And 35% is pretty good. That's more than decent for sure. Let's go ahead and look at his next ability here. Passive skill: increasing attack by 15%, increases HP by 30, and increases armor by 30. So that's great. Once again, 15% is not too bad considering he's a warrior. They don't really focus on attack too much anyway. He does do decent damage, however. And an increase of 30%, that's just going to help build up that wall. And increasing armor by 30, so also going to build up the wall. This last part here is he's frozen immune. I like it. I like the frozen immune ability. I think it could be dangerous to the game, though. If they run this too much with too many more heroes, where everyone starts getting immune to crowd control, I think it could potentially be a problem and just kind of make crowd control useless, which isn't something we want. But if they just do it with 1 or 2 heroes, I don't think it'll be a big deal. Just kind of extra incentive to throw them on your team. I think there's one other person besides the other new hero who is immune to a certain kind of crowd control, but I can't for the life of me remember who it is right now. I'll look into that. If you guys know who it is, put it in the comments. Alright, third ability here is a passive skill. While below 50% health, which we see a lot, heals self for 440% of attack as HP for 3 rounds continuously. Can only be triggered once. So I think that's going to be something that's going to make him really important in PvE as well as PvP. He's just going to be another great hero to have in the Aspen dungeon. In that he heals himself. He heals himself in his first ability, and he heals himself here in this last ability. We'll see how effective this is exactly. I want to say 440% would be pretty damn good. And since that like chips away, in the Aspen dungeon, I don't know if the next time you enter the Aspen dungeon with a new hero, if that ability will trigger again. It says only triggers once, but I don't know if that's per battle, which that would only be relevant in the Aspen dungeon. But well, I guess I'm sure in Brave Trial it would do it every time, so it probably does it every time in the Aspen dungeon. But we'll have to see. So he's a really solid character, pretty good stats. I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's a great start to these new heroes coming out. Hopefully we'll get some really kick-ass Abyss heroes on the next summoning event, or maybe a couple more undead, kind of bring it up to snuff. And then we'll have really fantastic heroes in the undead faction and really fantastic heroes in the fortress, and that's a good start. It's definitely a good start. Okay, next I'm going to look at Kamath. He's also a really great hero. He's got pretty good stats. So let's go ahead and just jump into his abilities as well. Active skill: deals 182% of attack damage against the backline enemies and has a 35% chance to petrify them for 2 rounds. So, in contrast to Corpsdemon, he targets the backline. So that's really great. It's a chance to hit those 4 in the back where a lot of people keep their healers. So that's fantastic. 35% chance to petrify. I was going to compare him pretty often to Karma, and I want to say, where's her petrify? Also 35% chance to petrify. So that's right on par with her. And then we can also go ahead and real quickly look at Dark Arthendal, since she's more commonly used. 30% chance to petrify for 2 rounds. So he's right on par with them. That's great, because they'll kind of get us away from, a lot of people use Dark Arthendal, so you can either have extra petrify or switch over and just use Kamath. Let's see, decreasing the target's armor by 30% for 3 rounds. So once again, we're seeing these undead factions who basically, this is not quite like armor break, but it might as well be like armor break. I mean, you're just subtracting from their armor instead of ignoring it. So that's really great, though. That's fantastic crowd control. I think that's going to be one of the things that makes him a deciding factor in deciding which of these heroes to pick, or which undead hero to pick in general. Alright, increase attack by 25%, increase HP by 25%, increase armor by 20%. And he also has an immune ability where he is immune to petrified. Like I said, that could be really dangerous, but it's not too bad. Like I said, as long as they don't get too crazy with this, I think it'll be a good thing. Maybe just keep it in the faction, kind of like all the undead faction have armor pierce. Some of them could have crowd control immunity, kind of even the playing field, making those undead characters a little bit more appealing. All right, has a 140% damage bonus to the petrified target. Sorry guys, I can't talk today. Basic attack targets the backline enemies, dealing 95% attack damage, and has a 20% chance to petrify. So just basically stacking more attack and more chance to petrify. So that's great. Like I said, I think Dark Arthendal has a 50% chance to petrify on her second ability. So this isn't quite as good as that, but it does do a lot of extra damage. So that's great. And his fourth ability, while below 50% health, increases self-reduced damage by 50% for 3 rounds. So that's not bad at all as far as a while below 50% health goes. Reduced damage always great. Self-reduced damage, I'm guessing that increases self-reduced damage by 50%. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. It can only be triggered once. 3 rounds is great. So he's really solid character, like I said. I think that he's right on par with the other 3 that I mentioned. They're probably a little bit better, to be honest, than Walter and Bloodblade and Aiden right now, just because they're new heroes. Maybe they'll buff the other 3 and get them a little bit more up to par with some of the newer heroes that are coming out. But let's go ahead and do these honorable mentions real quick. I wanted to just go ahead and throw Karma out there. She is a lot better than she was before they buffed her. You can go check out her stats and stuff. She's pretty on par with Kamath, but like a not quite as good version. Mostly, Karma has the same problem she used to have, in that she's still too slow. Now that they've upgraded the Guild Tech tree, she just can't keep up with some of the other crowd controls like Dark Arthendal. So hopefully they'll fix that again in the future. And Field still needs some work. He's still not up to snuff speed-wise, definitely. And the other one I wanted to honorable mention is Lutz. Lutz is a really cool character. He was really popular for a long time whenever mages were the meta, and hopefully they'll also get him back up to snuff. He's not bad. You can see his abilities here are pretty good, but they specifically target mages, and that's kind of fallen off right now. But he's a pretty good character if you're just starting the game off. He's not bad to invest in early game. I would definitely move away from him as soon as possible. I don't know that I would ever 10-star him. Probably leave him at 9-star at the very most, just so you could 10-star someone else. But anyway, guys, this has been Brute Force Brigade, and I really appreciate you guys checking out my YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe, and y'all have a fantastic day.